You are listening to the Boss Experience Podcast, a podcast with conversations about business growth, self-development, and maintaining a mindset to achieve business success. My name is Michelle Davis, and I am a business strategist and coach, and I'm your host. Let's get started. Well, welcome to another episode of the Boss Experience Podcast. My name is Michelle Davis, and I'm your host. And I'm so excited to be here with Sheena Cantar, who is with me all the way from the UK. So Sheena is a motivational speaker. She's a mindset and relationship coach, and she is an author. We are focusing on confidence in business and in life. Our life and our business aren't two separate things. You know, we live life and we're in business. They go hand in hand. You know, people always say, oh, you have to have confidence in business, but no one tells you how. That is what this particular episode is really about. Because when you think about, confidence, sometimes the older you get, the less confident you get, and you're not as bold, you're not as much of a risk taker. You know, we have a lot of limiting beliefs. And I hate to say it, the older you get, the more we tend to limit ourselves, unlike other generations who may feel like they can do anything. That's not the case once you get to the age around 40, 50, that self-doubt tends to creep in. But how exactly do you go about developing that confidence? Hey, if you're enjoying this episode and you know you're ready to take that next step to finally become a professional service provider on your own terms, I want you to consider working with me. When you work with me, I help you start your business the right way from the beginning so you can generate the revenue you desire doing what you love. So head over to CEOBlueprintAcademy.com. That's CEOBlueprintAcademy.com to check out the ways you can work with me to get set up for business success right from the start. That's CEOBlueprintAcademy.com. Okay, back to the show. So Sheena wants to specifically talk about superior knowledge, inferior results. But first, before we get into the topic, can you briefly tell us a little bit about you? Because you actually had, a very profound mentor. I want the listeners to know who your mentor is and who you trained under so that they know that you're here to really deliver some value for them.
Well, yes. Hello, everybody. It is my pleasure to be here. Thank you, Michelle, for having me on. So, yes, my mentor is and still is Bob Proctor. So I know many people will be thinking, well, hang on a minute, hasn't he moved away from this plane? He's with us even more now. So, yes, Bob Proctor is my mentor. And it's for the last 3 years. And so that's had a profound effect on my life. Absolutely.
You do a lot of work around mindset, and that's really the core of your business. When you hear about, women in particular, because that's the audience here, when we talk about women and we talk about women, deciding to make that leap into entrepreneurship a little bit later in life than, we anticipate. And interestingly enough, a lot of my guests have kind of been thrown into entrepreneurship because other doors were shut to them. They were pushed out of their jobs, or, they were fired or terminated or laid off, and they just couldn't find other opportunities, whether it be because of their age or whatever the case may be. And they find themselves, with no other choice but to start a business. Anytime you're in business, you need to be confident and you need to showcase your business. So where does anyone even start? And what does it really mean to have superior knowledge, but inferior results?
I mean, it's interesting what you said, where do you even start? I mean, that's the thing. People tend to start with knowledge and gather so much knowledge. But when we're building on a faulty platform of lacking of confidence, then you just end up top heavy. And that's what causes us to fall over, because we know so much and we're that busy applying this strategy, that strategy, that strategy. Well, somebody else did that strategy, so I'll do that strategy. And they read that book, so I'll read that book. And you end up just following everybody else and you've absolutely no idea who you are. That was one of the things that Bob Proctor said to me. He said he thought the trouble was people didn't have a good goal. He says, but he realized that wasn't actually the real problem. The real problem is people didn't know their starting point. And so we don't know who we are. Now, you think by the time you get into your 40s, Michelle, that you know who you are. But here's what happens as you go through your chakras, every chakra, every energy system. So, apparently, in this apparent body that we have apparently 7 energy chakras there. And they're 7 years apart. So can you see now when you get in from 42 to 49? That's the time that we're popping out the top chakra, the crown chakra, and we're like, what was this all about? That's where the apparent lack of confidence comes from, because you were told, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And now you're popping out the top and you're like, hang on a minute. I'm still in the same position. Nothing's really changed. I'm just older. I know more. I've done loads. I've worked really hard. Why am I here? What am I doing here? And so that's where the floor starts to shake, because we look at our whole life and go, what was it all about? What am I going to do for the next 50 years? So I think that's the first shaky platform. And then you try to run a business because you think you have to, and you're trying to get money and you're trying to feel safe, because before you had your safety of 25th of the month, there you go, payday, payday. And we're trained into that pattern. Money, no money, money, no money. You become an entrepreneur and you go, where's the money? Until 25th of the month, oh my goodness. And so do you see how you come from lack into entrepreneurship? You don't come from abundance. Most people don't. They're like, what's the strategy? How am I going to get money? How am I going to pay the bills? So we can have all the positive mindset in the world and come from lack.
Absolutely.
And I understand your journey, because that's exactly what happened. It's so positive. Every single person who's listening to this, they wouldn't be listening to it, for goodness sake, if they weren't positive. And so you got such a positive mindset, but that's only 2%. That's only 2%. The 98% in your subconscious, if that's coming from lack and trying to be safe, it's like running on a treadmill and not getting anywhere. So that's where the lack of confidence, I would say, comes from with people.
And we see that a lot, especially with the overload with the knowledge. And it gets to the point where you have to tap into what aligns with you. And people they consume so much content online, and they're constantly searching outwardly for who they are, instead of searching inward and asking themselves and really evaluating themselves and really getting to know themselves and discovering who they are, because we work so long under the umbrella of whatever our career is and whatever our job title is in our 9 to 5, that we don't tap into who we are. So the first step, you talked about, in your training with Bob Proctor, the first question is like, who am I? It's not about goals. It's like, who am I? What would be like a process for that new entrepreneur that's listening, or that entrepreneur that's kind of exactly what you described? That one day they're going to start this business. The next day they see something else on social media and I'm going to go with that. And then they end up with all these different ideas and they really don't know how to put them together. And worse, you can't show up online confidently if you don't know what you're doing. So where does this woman start as she's trying to put the pieces together and sort all of this information overload out?
For anybody who's listening, the first thing I want to say to you, it is okay to be you. You don't have to be the person who has oh, well, God, if only I had whiter teeth. Oh, God, if only I had this. If only I had that. If only I had. It is none of that is making your business. It is the vibrational essence of who you are and how you feel about yourself. And so one of the things that we do with Bob is we do use the goals first of all, because it's just to pull people out of themselves. So say like a call with me, you'd come on a call with me and I go, what do you really want? What do you really want? And we use it as bait. So I bring you as high as I can. Where will you go? And the excitement until I see somebody's face smiling and I go, there, what's that? What is that that's making you smile right there? And they'll tell me and I go, right, drop the goal. What are you feeling? You're smiling. What is that feeling? And then they just go, well, it's light. It's just light. It feels really good. And I go, that's what you're looking for. There you are. Look at you all smiley and happy and feeling light. That's the essence that we want to do this work in. And so lesson one, people, it's the consistency of a vibration. We're always like, up and down, because we're reacting to everything else rather than going, no, I want to feel this good. I want to feel this good no matter what is happening on the outside world. So, see, I noticed like, in the Bible, Jesus didn't do this, didn't do that. He didn't have a meditation regime. He didn't do Reiki. He didn't do any of that. But he was able. He didn't have his crystals either. Tarot cards. None of it, did he? And so, but he was able to walk the land, talking to kings and paupers and lepers and all. He spoke to everybody. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be peace? Walking the land like that, not having an opinion about everything. And the funny thing is, the opinion about everything that we have when we judge is actually a judgment against ourselves. We've judged ourselves so harshly. Like Bob takes us through 12 lessons. And, the lesson one is everything, but the other lessons support lesson one. And when we can stop the judgment of ourselves that you're wrong, that you should do this, that you have to do that. No, what do you want to do? Like, how often have you, like, I asked myself that question. I went, well, I just want to play polo around the world. Okay, well, how are we going to do that then? I don't know, but that's what I'm doing. I didn't figure out the how. I just asked myself, what do you want to do, Sheena? I don't want to work for money. I want to play with money. And so it's that lightness, be ye like little children. It's that lightness. So, because that's who you are. We are little children. We just became really serious adults with lots of knowledge because we wanted to prove that we knew things. And I love walking around and I go, I know nothing. I know nothing. I realized I learned all this stuff and I know absolutely nothing. And it is the best place to be because then I can be who I am without the knowledge, without the opinions, without the judgment, without the shoulds, woulds, coulds. And it is the most blessed place to be because of nothing, everything arises then.
Absolutely.
So what do I want to be now? How do I want to feel now? Well, I want to feel good. Okay, well, I'll feel good no matter what. So that's the journey in lesson one itself, is that whole conversation about how do you want to feel? I just want to feel right. Okay.
And so often we get caught up in, what we think success is, and we don't want to define it for ourselves. And, you'll hear like, oh, you can make six figures, or you need to make six figures, or you need to do this, or you need to do that. And we buy into that. But that's not what makes us happy. We need to get in tune with who we are and really tap into our inner strengths. And I always say, like, I don't think I ever would have gone on a path to self-development had I not ventured into entrepreneurship. And I think I just would have continued being like this robot, going to work, limiting myself to what I thought I could be. I had already had a plan in my mind that I couldn't be more than what I already was until I had to, dig a little deeper until I got into entrepreneurship. That's when I went on a self-discovery kind of journey. And I don't know if that was the same for you or if
that's about my marriage had gone in an opposite direction than what I'd chosen. And it was just like, and I'd be able to go for walks and not have to come home, and I'd be like, oh. Then I would think, well, there's more. There's just more. So that's where that started for me, probably about 12 years ago. And then that led me on that, and I couldn't get enough knowledge. And then I realized, whenever I came to study Thinking into Results with Bob, this was the most painful course I'd ever done. And I realized that all those masters in NLP, masters in Reiki, masters in hypnotherapy, masters coach, whatever it was, that they were all fun. And I'd actually not grown. I'd not changed. I just gathered a whole bunch of knowledge. And so then when you start a business, isn't it, then you do strategy. And what I find is it's 95% mindset and 5% strategy. Like the simplest strategies can work. I mean, I even knew that when I was working in corporate, that everybody had come up with all these big ideas and it was going to cost thousands. And I came up with a little sticky note to put on the front of patient records. And if you tick those 5 things, and then it will save this, this, and this, and everybody agreed with it, and it saved 3 million in 1 year from a sticky note. And so we're all busy trying to find this complicated strategy. And, you know, one of the good stories, I love quoting the Bible because I managed to get the Bible with science to actually relate to each other and what it said in the quantum physics world as well, and how they related. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's just been there, but I didn't understand. So about the fishing, you know, they're in the boat and they're fishing on the left side, and they fished all night and they couldn't get anything. And then they were told, we'll fish on the right side. And then they had the abundance of the fish. That's your imagination. And we use our imagination to work things out. And what I noticed, if I worked things out on the level of the problem, I had a break from the problem, but then the problem would return. I would work it out again on the level of the problem, and I would have the problem again. I would just keep getting breaks from the problem. What we want to do is, there is no problem. We want to go to our imagination and go, what do you want? What do you want? And then it's like tea time. It's not just for your goals. It's like even tea time. Everybody's arguing over what to have for tea. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't want that. And then you go, well, what do you want? And everybody's quiet.
No one knows.
No one knows. Well, how do you expect me to feed you when you don't know? It's the same with the universe. You know, you got to go, I want this. End of. But that's what we focus on in our imagination. But what do? We go back to the problem and try to work it out. And what I realized was that the who, what, where, why, when, how is actually the 6 degrees of separation. That's the resistance to you not having what you want. So that's why you see your goal here, but you work really, really hard here. And people go, but I can see it. I can see it. Oh. But most of the time we're working here. So for anybody listening, please stop working hard. Like, working hard is not the answer. It's not the answer.
So 2 things I know that the audience is, you know, they really need to know this. What was it like your first time meeting Bob Proctor?
It was just normal. See, every goal you get to, you're sort of there. And you're like, It's like that. It's like when I went to the Leaning Tower of Pisa for the first time, and I went, that's the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I've seen pictures of that all my life, and here I am looking at it. No big deal. Mm. You see, that's why goals are not goals to get, because when you get there, they're just normal. Mm-hmm. It's just a normal everyday occurrence. And it was just normal to be sitting there, like, you know, and listening to Bob and standing beside him. It was just, there's Bob. And having a conversation with him, it was just normal. So then you think you're not good enough because you go, where's the wow factor? There's never a wow factor in your goal. If there's a wow factor in your goal, you're too far away from it. Mm. Your goal should be like your breathing, that you've thought about it so much, you've internalized it so much that when you have it, it's just like you finish a marathon with taking the one last step and you're there. That's what it's like. So it was just normal, but it was also a journey of where I put him on a pedestal as well, that he had all my answers. He didn't have my answers. Mm. I don't have anybody's answers. The answers are not in thinking into results. I thought standing beside Bob Proctor, I'd have just had the answers. I'd have just been successful. You know what it says? It goes, get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You've got to write your affirmations out. You've got to do your gratitude. You've got to, oh my goodness, a whole more list of shoulda, woulda, couldas. Like, and then you beat yourself up because you didn't do them. And then you know all this stuff, but you're not getting the results. So you beat yourself up again, even more. Well, that was me. I don't know if anybody else does that, but this is certainly me. And what I realized was what Bob had taught us was like how to think, which would calm the mind down, which would bring order to the mind. And when we brought order to the mind, then we could start to see ourselves. Then we could start to hear the answers to our questions. Then I realized I was the only one. The I am is the only one who has the answers to my questions. Nobody else. And Bob, I realized that I'm the star, and Bob taught us this, you know, I'm the star of my story. And I called Bob into my story as a secondary character. So many times we put people on a pedestal thinking they've got the answer, but he just taught us how to think. Mm-hmm. It would calm ourselves down so we could really know ourselves. And that was the priceless bit from Bob, that he was secondary in my character, in my story. He wasn't the key man. I was always key. Just like I'm secondary in your story now. I'm secondary in anybody who's listening now. But you're key in your story. So it's been a heck of a journey.
Now, you are a full-time coach, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to share a
Well,
little bit about?
I wouldn't like to say full time. You know what I mean? I don't work very hard at all.
Well, that's your focus is
That's my
helping
main
people.
focus. Yes.
Yeah, helping people change their lives,
Yeah.
basically. And so, do you want to briefly share what you do and how folks can get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more about you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Sheena Cantar is a name that's been created. So if you just Google Sheena Cantar, you'll find her. You put her on social media, you'll find her. It's not hard to find, not to find me. But
And for those that are listening, Cantar is Cantar.
Yes, that is. I should. And so I work with people over a 6-month period with Bob's program. I don't just do this program. I mean, I fire everything at you because in that 6 months, what I want you to do is to never need a coach or mentor again. I want you to understand that you are your own coach and mentor. And I want you to take you on a thought pattern that is the basics. You know, if you want to be a master at anything, you cover the basics over and over again. So I play polo, and that's what I say. So coaching is my main focus, but so is also polo. I don't know. I just, they're both the same. And when I practice polo, I practice the basics over and over and over again. Then I go into a game. I visualize the basics over and over and over. So this is the basics of how to think. And my goodness, if we could just teach this to children. Imagine how, anyway, that's a whole other project that's going on. So it's about how to think. And Sandy Gallagher, who worked, alongside Bob Proctor, she was $1 billion lawyer. And when she came to listen to Bob for the first time, she thought she knew how to think. And when she realized, oh my goodness, we don't know how to think. And so this was, she's been fundamental in creating this program as well. So you've got the logical left brain with the allowance of the right brain to do what it wants. Now, normally the left brain will come in and poke and say, no, that's silly. We can't be doing that. So that's what's brilliant about this for people who are educated. This will close that gap. It will show you how to take all that knowledge, put it into certain thinking patterns, and you go, click, 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 click. Then has to infuse into the subconscious for the subconscious to go, okay, I get that. I get that instruction. It is very clear, very, it's like Amazon Prime. It's like the Universe Prime. It's like, you place your order, it goes off, it gets it. And you've got the faith born of knowledge, not faith born of, well, it will happen or just blind faith, because that'll fall over as soon as you hit an obstacle. We teach you how to hit every obstacle in your life head on. It brings them up for you to see them. That's why I'm saying this is probably the most painful thing that I've ever been through, because it went through me and I did not like what I saw. And it was painful. I'll just be honest with you. But I show my clients that it's how to not make it painful. So to raise it up and to see it for what it is. So yes, I work with you for 6 months. And my idea is that you don't need a coach or mentor after this. And every single person who's done this work, I say to them, do you need a coach or mentor? Do you need me? And they go, no. And that is the best job that I can do for anybody, is to not need me.
How does someone learn more about this particular program if they're interested?
So I think I've given you a link. So there'll probably be a link somewhere they can click, directly on that link. Yeah.
In the show notes. So if you're listening to the podcast, it's in the show notes. And if you're watching the podcast, it'll be in the description. So what are some final words that you have for people who are tuning in? They're struggling to get results and they're struggling with all of this information, but more importantly, they're struggling with where do they even fit in this entrepreneurial space?
Yeah. Where do I fit in? I'm going to give you, a signature program of mine is called Catalyst to Happiness. And I designed it because I could see that people didn't know where they were. They weren't at peace. They were trying to change things when they were in the midst of chaos. And that's just never going to happen. So I designed something that would help bring people to peace, first of all, so then they could step forward. And I give it free to my clients. And so the first thing that we want to do is just to acknowledge where we are. How many times are we fighting where we are instead of just acknowledging, okay, it's gone haywire. Things have gone wrong. Or I don't know what I'm doing. Just acknowledging that it's like the stopping point. So then the next thing would be, I call it the 6 A's. So the next thing would be to accept where you are. Stop fighting it. Please stop fighting it. Because that's the thing that I did, was I fought where I was. And when I stopped fighting, things moved. Then I would fight again, and then I would get stuck again. And then when I accepted everything, it doesn't mean that you go, oh yes, I want this, wherever you are. It just means you stopped fighting, which stops the resistance, which means it's like, let go of the rock in the stream, flow. So acknowledge and acceptance for me is just, that brings you peace, stops the fighting. You can now breathe. Everything's okay. It's okay to be me. It's okay to be here. I've not done anything wrong. And everything is the way it's supposed to be. It cannot not be. That then, when you're ready in that space, you go, well, what do I want? So that's the attention. What are you putting your attention on? Sometimes it's just, you just want to feel better. Sometimes it's just, well, you know what you want, and you can actually speak something. So maybe it's just, well, I just want another client. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a feeling or whatever, or an actual tangible result. Just put your focus on it, attention, and then allow whatever comes up. But what does that feel like? If that came true, what would I feel like if I had another client right now? Oh, I could feel I could breathe even more. Okay, that's brilliant. Feel into that breathing. Then the next A is appreciation. Appreciate that feeling. That's what you're looking for. That's it. That's all you're looking for. And stay awake to it. And promise yourself that that's the feeling you're going to look for every time, every day. Maybe set your phone. I have it still on my phone every hour. I have a message that comes up to go, pattern shift. What are you doing? What are you thinking? Like, are you off in somebody else's business? It's not serving you. Get back here, now, in you. What are you feeling? Well, I'm feeling crap. Right, okay, start the 6 A's again. Acknowledge, accept, attention, allow, appreciate, stay awake. That would be my gift to everybody, that in itself saved me. Yeah, I had to do that nearly all day, every day for quite a while, till I managed to get myself through and starting to move again. So if anybody's really stuck, it's priceless.
Amazing. And I just want to thank you so much, Sheena, for taking the time to give a ton of value to my audience. Amazing. And I am so glad that we had this time together. And so that's a wrap. That's a wrap.
I appreciate the time to do this. So it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So if you want to know more about Sheena, she spells her first name Sheena, last name Cantar. And you can find her on LinkedIn and all social media platforms. And they can find your book on Amazon or?
Yes.
She's even on Amazon. So with that being said, I just want to thank Sheena once again. Hopefully you got tons of value from this episode, because that was just amazing. Anytime you are thinking about, how do you get unstuck? This is definitely, I think Sheena just delivered tons of value and some key steps on how to get unstuck. And most importantly, where do you even start? So with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. And I look forward to you tuning in to a future episode of the Boss Experience podcast as well. Take care and be well. Thank you for tuning in to the Boss Experience podcast. Don't forget to leave a review for this episode and tune in next time.